This is going to be a quick little video on going through and making animations using the mannequin skeleton and firearms. And this will be without having to use, create any sort of sockets or anything like that inside of Unreal Engine to actually get the gun to line up properly. So if we take a look, for example, this is just the first person template for the most part. Let's open up let's just load up one of the animations. So we'll do the first person idle animation. And the way that the gun attaches is through the grip point, which is a socket that was made and positioned to rotate and all that kind of stuff. So that'll work fine if you have, just one gun, for example, and you're going to just really spend some time aligning that that socket to where the gun is supposed to be in your hands. But if you want to get a accurate one-to-one I guess kind of translation between Blender and your animations in Unreal Engine, you're not going to want to use a socket. You're going to want to attach it directly to a bone. And for us, well, the mannequin, it has an IK bone for a gun, which is just part of the right hand, which in this case it's just way out here, but it can still be made use of. And we can also do the same concept to use it with the hand IK as well. So those are two bones that are really used to kind of drive, well, like it says, the IK. So if you're using, in your animation blueprint, let's say you create an IK system for your left hand to grip a specific part of a firearm, that's kind of what you would use. So that's what these are used, and we're going to use the IK_hand_gun bone for our weapon animation. Now, we're going to be using Blender, and I'm going to be using the Mr. Mannequin plugin, just so it goes ahead and generates a rig for our mannequin, as well as it will go ahead and it does the same thing for the actual gun itself, the FP gun. Let me find it right here. So it'll go ahead and generate the rig and stuff for that, so we can animate this all as needed. So let's begin. Inside of Blender, there's some stuff we want to do first, so I'm going to go ahead and delete everything in the scene. And I want to go ahead and go to Scene Properties, change unit scale to 0.01. Then let me go ahead and zoom out, press N to bring up the side window, view, and change the end of the view to 100 meters. So that way it looks about normal and everything's in the correct scale. Next up, I want to go ahead and enable the Mr. Mannequin add-on, so I just go to Edit, Preferences. Assuming you've already installed the plugin, this is the easiest thing to do. You should know how to do it by now, honestly. Just make sure Mr. Mannequin is enabled. Press N, you should see the tab for Mr. Mannequin over here. And we could also change the unit scale in the frames per second right here, but I just always do them in here anyways. So we want to make sure our frame rate is at 30 to line up with just how Unreal Engine. So next up, let's go ahead and save this .blend. I'm just going to do tutorial for the name, and now we can begin. So what I'm going to do is under the rig for the Mr. Mannequin tab, I'm going to select our mannequin and press load rig. Save it again, click on the rig. Now let's select the mesh to use for it. So I'm going to use the LOD1 for the mannequin just because I don't want the full detail, because my PC is not really the strongest. And then we press load mesh, and it's common that it's going to crash like it just did there, but if we open it right back up, as you can see, we now have the mesh loaded up. So we are good to go there. If we click on the rig, we can go into pose mode and work everything like we would normally. So that is good to go. Now we want to go ahead and just do the gun for the I'm just going to do this also has the FP gun in it, so I'm going to do that just for the sake of simplicity, so I don't have to rig up another gun. So I'm going to create a rig for the FP gun, but you could do this for really any firearm you wanted, and I will show you the way it's set up and how it's set up to work kind of with this. So go ahead and load up the gun mesh as well. Didn't crash, cool. And here we have our gun. So, let me go ahead and just hide the mannequin real quick. The way that this is set up to work is we have, let me go into pose mode. We have two bones here on the grip. So we have the root bone here. It's just named control bone in this case because of the rigging. And then we also have the grip bone. So if we look in Unreal Engine, we have the root bone. Let me slow this down a little bit, which is right here. And then we have the grip bone, which is right where the root bone is. So what we do is we attach the root bone, so essentially the entire armature, to the IK hand underscore gun bone of our mannequin, and we modify the grip bone to pretty much be wherever we need it to actually go. So for example, I want to move the grip bone. Let's say the hand is directly up. So we attach it, then I have to move the gun to match the hand, so I just move the grip bone directly up, while the root is still attached to the IK underscore hand underscore gun bone. So that's how we're going to pretty much go about doing this. So let me unhide all that stuff in Blender. And what we're going to do is simply, we're going to click on the armature. Going to go over here to Object Constraints, Copy Transforms, and let's go ahead and select the rig here. And then we should, if we search for gun, we have IK underscore hand underscore gun. We can select that. And as you can see, when I move this around, it's attached to that bone right there on the wrist. Just like, let me find, do we have any other animation? Or I'll just have to look at the skeleton. So, let me remove that preview. Find the IK hand gun, and I'm going to add the skeletal mesh. So as you can see, it's attached right there at the wrist with the root bone right there at the wrist for the gun, and it's pointing directly downwards just like it is inside of Blender. So now we need to modify its position. So I'm going to click the armature of the gun, and I can go over here to bone properties so I can see what bone selected. So I have the grip bone right now. I do not want the root bone like that, I want the grip bone. And I'm just going to position it wherever it would work for the hand to be lined up with it. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Gonna get it somewhat close. And you know, I'd say that's good enough for now. So now I just want to go ahead and pose it. So I'm going to select my hand, move it out kind of towards where it would be. Get it lined up somewhat decent. Move it into the shoulder and then extend the elbow out. And that's pretty much it. I want to go ahead and move the right hand, or the left hand, sorry, to the firearm itself. Move it there. I'm going to reopen that elbow. And I want to go ahead and rotate my hips a little bit. So that way it lines up a little bit better, and I can move the firearm directly back into the shoulder, give myself more room for the hand. And in this case, yeah, I can reach it. I'm going to try to grip underneath the firearm instead of gripping at the mag well, and I'd say that's close enough. For this example anyways. So we have our, let's say we have our hand, our setup posed. Now what we want to do is we want to make it so when we move our hand and gun and stuff around, we want the left hand to follow. So we're going to click on our IK left hand for the left, our IK control bone for the left hand. Go to bone constraint properties. We're going to click child of. For the target, we're going to select the rig. And then for the bone, we're going to search for hand. And we have the, in this case, AT underscore hand underscore R, and then hit set inverse. So now we can, move it around and stuff so it follows. And that's really it. So we're good to go. We have our pose. Let's go ahead and make a quick little idle animation. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this. This is just set to the timeline, and I like leaving that there so I can control the start and ending keyframes. Then I'm going to drag up another horizontal area. I'm going to select the dope sheet, then go to Action Editor. Now I'm going to create a new action, and I'm going to click Fake User to save it. And I'm just going to minimize summary because I only like having a single keyframe showing up for everything instead of a huge flood of them in the list. And I'm just going to go to 30 frames. Like so. So this is going to be for the mannequin. So I'm going to do mannequin idle. So like so, just simple. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to be lazy. I'm going to select all, copy location and rotation, copy that keyframe, and move it to frame 31. I'm going to go to frame 15, just right there in the middle. And I'm going to simply move the right hand up and give it a slight rotation. Select all again and keyframe it. And now when we play it, this is our idle animation. I'm going to slow that down a bit, so I'm going to go to 45. Move that last keyframe to frame 46. And move the keyframe at frame 50 to, I don't know, I guess frame 22. So it's slowed down a bit, like so. Let's say we're happy with that. It's good enough. We can go ahead and export this animation. So if you're using your own kind of rig setup, it's going to be different for everybody, but generally how I export inside of Blender is I have an own little profile set up, but I'm not going to be using it. But a quick overview, when we export as FBX, for animations I just do selected object. I have armature and mesh selected, so just make sure you're selecting the armature only if you're doing animations. Then under here, under geometry, we have smoothing set to face. Go ahead and apply modifiers if you have any. Under armature, only to form bones. Check bake animation, and just key all bones. And you would hit export. But in this case, Mr. Mannequin has its own little export system, which is nice and handy because it also comes with a female version of this, which has some extra bones for the breasts, and we do not want that in our case, obviously. So what we can do is we can go into object mode with the rig selected. We're going to check export animations, and just by default I'm going to do my desktop and just simply select. I'm going to go ahead and check bake to forms and then hit export FBX. Give that a minute. Okay. Now we should have this guy right here, our new animation, UE4 underscore mannequin underscore skeleton underscore mannequin underscore idle. It's quite a name. And I'm just going to drag it and drop it to my root for the example. And for skeleton, I'm going to select our mannequin arms and hit import. As you can see, I didn't have to do any retargeting or anything like that. It just imported directly. And as you can see by the animation playing, it works, and it's pretty much identical to how it is inside of Blender. So that's great. The only downside for the example that you'll see is with the first person template, for whatever reason, the first person arms are rotated 90 degrees, whereas the third person template is facing the correct direction, and I'm not really sure why that is. But anyways, back into Blender, we want to go ahead and do something for the rifle. So because I don't want to have to re-import this rifle, well, the firearm, I'm going to go ahead and just do an animation with it, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But another route that you could do is, you can see the root bone right here. What you could do is get everything lined up exactly how you want in the hands to begin with, and then once you have everything set up, you can export the mesh and the armature right into Unreal Engine with the offsets. So you would have, for example, the grip bone right here being offset from the root bone, just like it is. So that way you don't have to really worry about doing this step. But in case you're like me and you're using this, what do you call it? The default gun that comes with the template, you're going to want to probably just create a base animation just to kind of kick things off. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So I'm going to go into pose mode. I'm going to create a new action, make it a fake user, and I'm just going to call it FP gun underscore idle. And I'm just going to make it 2 frames long. And on frame 1, I'm just going to select all, location, and I'm going to paste it at frame 2. So it's the same exact thing. No big deal. And now, I might be able to actually export this the normal way because it doesn't have any extra bones, I don't think. So let me try that. Let me export as FBX. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. FP gun underscore idle. Try to bring it in engine. Select the FP gun, import. Okay, let's see. And it looks like it actually may have worked. Yeah, it worked because the grip bone is offset from the root bone. So if I go ahead and load up the skeleton like normal, so as you can see, the grip bone is exactly where the root bone is. However, in this animation, or how you should export it in my opinion, the root bone is far back and the grip bone is offset forward to compensate for the location from this point here where it's attached to where it's going to fit in the hand. So we're good to go there. So I can go ahead and actually close that up. And now we just need to play it to make sure it actually works. So I'm going to go to first person animations, animation blueprint. Let's see, state machine, go to our idle. And I'm going to drag off our exported idle animation and plug it in. And as you will see when I hit compile, this mannequin rotates to face us, like so. So obviously that's going to be a slight problem. I thought that was a weird bend in it, but never mind, that's just the gun. So let's just fix that really quick. So I'm going to go to our blueprint classes. Player, this would just be the default, whatchamacallit, the default first person template character. And I'm going to change the rotation. Why is that the default? So 90, no, negative 90. So it's facing, I guess, correctly. And then when I hit play, it's going to be still messed up because of where the, okay, maybe it is rotated. Wait a minute. Oh, no, it's playing the right one. It's just a little, the gun was screwing with me. So what we need to do is I need to set it up so currently the first person gun is attached to the grip point socket that was made right here, and we want it to attach to the IK underscore hand underscore root that comes with it, so we don't have to worry about sockets. So I'm going to change grip point to IK underscore hand underscore gun and compile. So now I'm going to have to relaunch the editor though. Once we hit play, the gun should be in the correct position for our hands. And it should be just a 1-to-1 with Blender. So you don't have to create it. Like if you have multiple weapons, you would probably have to have several different sockets for each one of those. And as you can assume, that's not very ideal. So let's hit play. Alright, that is still not quite correct. And that's because we have to play that animation that we exported for the gun. Because as you can tell, it's rotated. The gun was rotating inward like so, like it was by default. So in our case, we have to trigger that animation to play just once, and it'll be good to go. So let's go to our character class. In the event graph, I'm going to drag off the first person gun, play animation. And the animation we want to play is our FP gun idle. So ignore that warning. So now when we go to play, as you can tell, the gun is positioned. Obviously it's playing a different animation for when we shoot, so it's wanting to rotate everything. But we have a 1-to-1 placement for our animation. So this is exactly how it is inside of Blender, even though it's just the arms in this case, but the arms use the third person or the normal mannequin skeleton anyways. So if you were using a third person mesh, for example, it would be the exact same. So it would be looking just like this, but inside of Unreal Engine with the third person mesh. So that's how you can make use of the IK bone or the IK gun bone for the right hand, and using Blender to create the just what do you call it? Just first person animations. And same thing goes for third person animations without having to make use of sockets. So instead of using sockets, we're just attaching it right to the IK hand underscore gun bone that already exists. And you can even, if we take a look through the skeleton, just one more time, there's other bones in the hand here. So we have the hand underscore R. We could even attach it right to that, because that is actually where, if I rotate it, the IK hand gun bone is. So I can grab this guy, it's just rotating the socket around, or that bone around. But you can really just attach it to hand underscore R, and it'll be the exact same. And that might actually be the better route, but it's good for now. So you can kind of do whatever you want, figure out whatever works for you. But this is pretty much the route that I'm going, because I only just figured this out, and I'm kind of ashamed to say how long it actually took me to figure this out. But yeah, hopefully this helps you. So with any luck, you can now use the mannequin skeleton or the mannequin armature to easily create animations for first and third person using firearms without having to have any special sockets or anything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much just rambling at this point. So anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give me a like, feel free to subscribe, and if you want to help support me, you can find a link to my Patreon down in the description below, and if you have any questions, you can also find my Discord linked right there with it. So as always, I will see you in the next video. Take care.